Hey everybody, it's Lindsay Baker with the Action Hour, and I am so happy to be here tonight with John Oberg, who you probably all know, but just in case you don't for some reason, he is an animal advocate, influencer, and social media professional dedicated to making the world a kinder place for animals by using the power of social media. And that's what he's here to talk about with us tonight. Now, he has launched his own independent Patreon project, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about so many things with him. John, I'm so glad to have you here. Thank you for being on tonight. How are you doing?
Lindsay, I'm doing great, Lindsay. I'm honored to be here, to be in the presence of an animal hero like yourself. Thank you so much for all the work that you're doing for animals day in and day out. It's great to be here with you and to be with all your viewers and listeners.
Thank you so much. So let's jump right into it, John. I know that there were some pictures I found on your Facebook page that really moved me, and I just want to show people the sort of things that you post, and we're going to have you tell us a lot about how to be strong and influential on social media. But look at this picture. I mean, it says it all. It's not too much graphic, so you can post it anywhere. And it just broke my heart. Can you just speak to that for a moment, or for as long as you want, really?
Absolutely, Lindsay. So the photo that I have here is a photo of egg-laying hens. Well, they're male chicks born into the egg industry. And for your viewers out there, I'm sure everybody knows that male chicks don't provide eggs, right? Only females. And so at hatcheries, when the male chicks are born, they are essentially useless because they don't grow fast enough to become meat. So they obviously don't produce eggs. So they are essentially worthless. So what you are seeing in this photo is a few small day-old male chicks on a conveyor belt, and they're falling to their death. They're actually falling into a grinder. And before everybody closes this broadcast and tunes out, we're not going to get very graphic here, but it is important to mention that is an extremely graphic, egregious form of cruelty that these animals face that almost nobody knows about. And I use photos and videos and media like this to get people to take animal issues more seriously, to get people to know how farm animals are being treated behind the closed doors of factory farms and slaughterhouses.
Yes. And you've been doing this since you were quite young. Do you want to just tell us a little bit of how you became vegan and about your mom and all that?
Absolutely. So I grew up an animal lover in Detroit, Michigan. My mom really instilled a sense of compassion for me. And my mom and I were very close. She raised me as a single mother. Her and I were like best friends. And one of the things that we would do when I was young is I would join her in the mornings before school. What we would do is we would go to the local park and we would collect soda cans out of the trash cans. You know why? Because in the state of Michigan, you get 10 cents for every can. At the time, it was the only state, I think it might still be the only state where you get 10 cents for every can that you return to the grocery store. And so my mom was a single mother, and we needed every dime that we could get. And so we would go to this park. We would get these cans out of the trash can every morning. On a good day, we get $10, $20, $30 worth of cans. And so oftentimes in the morning, however, there was nobody in the park. It was the crack of dawn, probably 6 or 7 in the morning. And the only beings that were up and awake at that time at the park were the deer that lived in that park. And my mom and I became very close with these deer. We recognized these deer. We pretend befriended them. We gave them names, and we really formed a nice bond with these animals. And then what happened was we learned that the local hunters have convinced the board of this park to let them hunt these deer, to let them kill these deer who knew no sense of fear. They didn't know, they looked at humans as friends and companions, not as potential enemies. And so we were appalled. And so I was 9 or 10 or 11 at the time. And, while I was very upset, I had no sense of justice in me. I had no sense of activism in me. But my mom said, Johnny, we can't let this happen. We need to do something. And so my mom we would go to the entrance of this park every day, even in the winter. And we'd hold signs up that said, being cruel isn't cool and stop the hunt.
Wow.
And so much so that we got local media, and we really gave it our all. And actually, as a 10-year-old, I even got up and spoke in front of the Department of Natural Resources meeting with dozens of people in the audience, and I was so incredibly shy, and all I could utter was, "Please don't hurt the deer." And
that did it, though, I bet.
well, I wish it had. Unfortunately, the deer hunt went on as planned, and my mom and I were very, very heartbroken. But what this experience taught me was that when there is an injustice going on in the world, you should still speak out, even if the odds are against you, because your voice matters. Your voice is going to make at least somewhat of a difference. Your activism is needed because these animals are innocent and vulnerable and have no protection. They have nobody speaking up for them. And so my mom and I did what we could. Unfortunately, we couldn't stop the hunt. But one thing that we were able to do that I look back on and my heart smiles was that one night we snuck into the park, or we stayed after the park had officially closed. And at the time, this is when the hunt was going to take place of these deer. And my mom and I, this is, of course, her idea, she had us howl as loud as we could. And the reason was because it would scare the deer. It would alert them that danger was near. And we found out that the next day, far, far fewer deer were killed than all the previous days. And so that one act of activism spared the lives of many animals. And each one of us as activists, we never know what conversation we're going to have that's going to change somebody, what leaflet we hand out is going to change somebody, one social media post that is going to change somebody. But we are changing people, and we need to keep up the activism because the animals need us to.
That's so right. And can you tell us a little bit about you've worked with the vegan outreach. You've also worked for the Humane League as social media. Let's see what your title, I want to get your title right.
It was Director of New Media.
Yeah, there we go. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've learned doing that work, or what you encountered, and how difficult was it every day to look at those horrifying pictures? I know personally from cutting, video to talking to folks like you, it gets me down. So I can't even imagine how it must have been for you. If you could talk a little bit about that as well.
Sure, Lindsay. So my role at Vegan Outreach, as it was later at my time there, because I didn't start out as this, but later on, I was Director of Communications, which entailed me running their social media presence. I did that for 2 years. Then I left VO, joined the Humane League, which is another international animal protection organization based in the US. And I ran and oversaw their social media presence for 3 years. So for 5 years, I essentially ran the social media for these two major animal protection organizations. And I did this because I found it to be an extremely meaningful and useful and effective tool in the toolbox for animal protection. We have never seen an era like this in humankind where we can spread ideas like that. In an instant, we can reach people all across the globe with the power of social media. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Rizzle, TikTok, YouTube, Reddit, all of these platforms offer this same thing, and that is connection, communication with anyone, anywhere in the globe with an internet connection. And never before have we had this ability to spread information. And this is really good timing because animal advocates are becoming more empowered and becoming more effective every single year. And we are learning, and this is something I'm really trying to hit home, we are learning that this information that almost nobody knows, the way that farm animals are being treated, almost nobody knows this. We are able to spread that information by using these tools of social media. These tools of social media are incredibly powerful tools. And this image that you just showed is of a cow, a dairy cow, who is suffering with mastitis. And that is a painful condition that dairy cows can face after they have been pumped full of hormones and pumped full of all kinds of things, and then not giving the treatment that they deserve. And our job isn't necessarily to demonize farmers. I don't believe that the person in charge of this farm is purposely being cruel. But what I do believe is that in this system where farm animals are treated as nothing but commodities and looked at as nothing but profit or loss, their welfare becomes a very, very low priority. And as animal advocates, we should really do everything we can to make that a priority, to get these animals to be treated in more humane ways, and to get them to not be raised in factory farms, to get them not to become food at the end of the day. We need to spread the message that all animals, including farm animals, deserve our compassion, our consideration, and our respect.
I like the way you said that in one of the speeches you gave that I heard, where you said, people would like to think that cows live a lovely life and they have one bad day. And you said, but that's not the case. And you went into detail about the fact that it would be nice if, unlike your dog and cat, they weren't sentient, they didn't have relationships and all that. But the fact, and I love the way you did that and explained that. But John, can you also address this? It's the American need to supersize. Look at this picture. I, again, found this in your social media. Your stuff is so effective and so right on. But showing in 1957, the difference between how the animals, the chickens, are grown to what this grotesque, like the cow, the chicken. Do you want to address that a little bit as well?
Absolutely. So, my job as a social media activist, which is I've been a full-time independent animal activist using social media for the last 2 years. My job is to spread the information about how farm animals are being treated and to get them to be more considered by all. And so using information like this, talking about how chickens are now being bred and grown 4 times the size of their natural size from just decades ago is absolutely unreal. And most people just don't know this. They go to McDonald's and they get a chicken sandwich. They go to Chick-fil-A and get a chicken sandwich. They go to the grocery store and they get, chicken thighs. They are not being told, hey, just so you know, this chicken was bred to grow so quickly and so large that many of them will actually let their legs snap beneath them, and so that they suffer to death on the floor of a dirty factory farm, or the fact that these animals face lives of unbearable cruelty and suffering by literally just being trapped within their own bodies, because these animals are facing tremendous cruelty at the hands of humans, and we each can do something about it. And a great way to start is by advocating for these animals, by using these powerful tools like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and so on.
Yes, absolutely. And you can possibly give us some information about how to do that as well. And I want to talk about your Patreon page and so forth, your Patreon site, and how people can become a member of that. But one question that comes to mind right now is, as far as posting images, what do you say to activists that want to post graphic images? Is that good? Is there a certain time you do it, or never? Or what is your rule on that?
That's a really great question, Lindsay, because there's no simple answer. Essentially, there are a few things to take into consideration. So if you are an animal activist who recognizes that social media is a useful tool, which I hope everyone listening and watching this right now agrees with us that social media is a powerful tool. I mean, hey, you're probably watching this on social media right now. So it is a powerful tool. Now, if you recognize this fact and you want to use social media, obviously getting the experience that farm animals face in front of the eyes of many people is extremely important. Now, something to keep in mind is that these animals are facing extreme cruelty in some cases. And what that means is that there is a lot of graphic footage that comes with that. And a lot of us see that and immediately want to share that. And it could be very, like, the worst of the worst cruelty. The problem with that is that if it's so bad that people will just turn away instantly, you're missing a huge chunk of your audience who otherwise might be open to your message. Additionally, if you're uploading this content yourself, you're running risk of getting censored because these platforms only allow graphic or violent content to a certain degree before they think that it's too much, and then they'll censor your tweets or your Facebook posts or whatever. So you really have to find this middle ground. For me, I try to focus on pulling at heartstrings rather than just shocking people with egregious cruelty. I think that you can be just as effective by getting people to consider farm animals in different ways that don't require making people want to vomit on sight or wash their eyes out because they just saw the worst thing they've ever seen. And then the one nice thing, the one silver lining about the reality that farm animals face is that it is really, really bad, and therefore we can take that cruelty that they face and talk about it without having to exaggerate. The truth is bad enough. We don't need to exaggerate. We don't need to lie, and we don't need to we don't even need to show it as bad as it gets, because even in the best case scenarios, farm animals are still living lives of a lot of suffering.
Absolutely. John, you have a piece that where you spoke here. I took it off of, I think, Facebook or YouTube. I'd like to play the pig story.
Why do we focus on farm animals? Obviously, we want to focus on all animals, but what is so great about focusing on especially the animals that we eat? Because of the numbers. 99% of the animals that are killed in the United States every year are farm animals. So that 1% sliver is all animals that are killed in laboratories, killed in the wild, or hunted in the wild, that are killed in shelters. So while we should do everything we can to advocate for all animals, it's very important that we remember the numbers here and how each one of us can make such a drastic impact by focusing where the biggest areas of need are. And it would be one thing if farm animals lived good lives and then they had one bad day where they were sent to slaughter, but that's not the case. And it'd be one thing if farm animals were mindless, brainless beings, while cats and dogs had emotions and were sentient. But the fact of the matter is, farm animals are extremely intelligent and very capable of feeling emotions and pain and fear. And in fact, under the story that I've heard an undercover investigator tell is that he worked at a facility similar to this, where the gestation or the sows the mother pigs were kept in gestation crates so small they can't even turn around. And after a while, this pig learned how to open the crate with her tongue. So he witnesses this pig do this and enter into the common area. And what did this pig do? The pig, she did not run for the exit for her own safety. She went around to every other stall and opened it with her tongue. And
wow, that is incredible.
That is a story that we need to tell. We need to make people understand that these animals are just as worthy of our consideration as the cats and dogs that we share our homes with. There is no difference.
Yes, and these pictures you have, these was that the one that you got all the retweets on?
It was a similar video. It was a video. Yeah. This is another similar video. People often will be disturbed by the fact that these sentient beings who are capable of fear and suffering and pain, they are just treated like nothing more than commodities. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And it's not to mention what it does to the environment or your health. There's so many reasons to stop eating meat. And so what was your journey like? How did you make the change? Because I'm noticing a lot of people that I talk to on social media, younger people that are not vegan, they're like, oh yeah, they see the stuff about the environment. It's starting to, as you know, it's starting to hit home. But they say things to me like, oh gosh, I wish I could do it. I just don't know if I could do it. It's this huge sacrifice to be vegan. I'm like, hey, have you seen the food we eat? Do I look like I'm deprived? My goodness. See,
Exactly. So for me, the journey began, my journey essentially began when I became an animal lover shortly after birth. And then, that kind of led me to always have a sense of compassion for these animals who I looked at as needing our consideration. And then, but I also ate meat. I ate animals just about every single day, all day, for the first 21 or so years of my life. And then what happened was I was having a conversation with someone, and they were talking about activism. And I said, oh, I kind of want to be an activist too. They said, what kind of activist do you want to be? And I said, oh, I want to be an animal activist. And they said, if you want to be an animal activist, you should probably stop eating animals. And I had never once made the connection between the animals I eat and the animals I love. And that was the final seed that was planted that sprouted into me going vegetarian on principle. And so I went vegetarian based on this principle that, hey, if I consider myself an animal lover, probably shouldn't eat them. Didn't know anything about factory farming. Was kind of weaning myself off of animal products for a good 10 months, switching from cow's milk to soy milk, because back in 2009, soy milk was the number one milk. Now it's like oat milk or almond milk or something.
Rice milk.
Yeah. Never anything you can think of. Back in 2009, there were like 2 or 3 options. Like oat milk and rice milk were fancy. So I was weaning myself off. And then I watched this movie called Earthlings. And so for any of your viewers who haven't seen it, but are also not yet vegan, I would recommend watching it. If you're already vegan, don't subject yourself to seeing this. But it's a lot of just truth about how farm animals are being treated. And so watching this film, it didn't just teach me that, dairy cows and egg laying hens are also worthy of our consideration, not just the animals that we eat their flesh, like chickens, pigs, and cows, and so on, and fish, of course, but also that farm animals are being treated miserably essentially from birth to death, every single day, from the moment they wake up to the moment they sleep. They are living lives of absolute treachery. And for that reason, I decided to go vegan and get involved with activism right away.
Wow, that is an amazing story. Like you say, so many people don't know what's going on. And if you're a vegan, I always say you have to be an activist too, if you really want the world to change. And you have a huge project that you started in 2019, and your independent Patreon funded project. So let's talk a little bit about that. I actually have a little clip of you explaining it, which I'd like to play.
Hey guys, John Oberg here. If this is your first time on my Patreon page, welcome. I am here to explain to you what Patreon is and what I am doing for animals. So I am a full-time independent animal activist. A little bit more about me is back in 2009, I got my start working for animals. This led to me living out of my car, traveling around North America, handing out pamphlets to college students all over North America, basically encouraging them to live and eat more compassionately for animals. And I really enjoyed that work. And what it led to was me focusing on social media for a couple big animal protection organizations. I really like that work too. And the reason I really like that work was because in just a few hours or days of my time, I could do as much good as I could in an entire lifetime of handing out pamphlets on college campuses. And so I realized this is my niche. This is where I have to focus my energy. So in December 2018, I made the decision to quit my job and to focus on this work for animals full time. It was a risk, but I'm so happy that I took that risk. In 2019, so in the last 12 months, I have had a reach of over 200 million impressions of my social media posts across my personal Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And this is because of patrons. It is people who recognize the work that I'm doing is important and they want to sign up to become a monthly patron. So if you are interested in becoming a monthly patron, you can do that on this page, and that is how I am able to do this work for animals. And the great thing about Patreon is that it's a transaction. So by you becoming a patron, you also get some cool stuff. And there is a variety of things that I offer at the different tiers that you'll see on this page. So I am here to empower you to become the best animal activist that you can be. And together we are going to create a huge amount of change for animals. We are going to create.
Hey, I just want to share the screen. I have your, I believe I have your Patreon open. And so we could just go there for a moment. Can you see that?
See it. Yep.
Let's see. Let me get your view. Okay. Yeah, it's big enough. Okay. So I'll just scroll a little bit and so people can see. And if you want to become a member, patreon.com, John Oberg, super spelling, super short name, super easy to find. And I also just put it in the links so you can find it there.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. This is so kind of you to introduce this to all of your followers. Yeah, patreon.com/John Oberg. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
I put that in the comments for people now, and I also put your website. But of course, we want to share that because, as you say, you are helping to get that message out. What you're doing is invaluable work, and people can make a small donation, $5 a month. That's not even save a half a cup of Starbucks. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, maybe in Los Angeles. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying, I know money is not easy right now. I'm not trying to be like that, but we know that we can find it if we, and it's so important. It's so important. But also, John, we would like you to give some tips to our viewers of how they should go about it a little bit. And like, what's the routine? Like, maybe if we start talking about it a little, I can ask you some questions because we still have plenty of time, unless there's something you want to share now. But I would like to talk about this at some point. So whatever you like.
I'll give you some tips, and I'll just quickly say thank you again for sharing. Yeah, I'll say quickly again, thank you for sharing my Patreon. For the viewers out there who want to support my work, I'm only able to do the work that I do full-time for animals via social media because of the support of my monthly patrons. As little as $5 a month goes a long way for me. So I'm so grateful to each one of you for signing up. So Lindsay, again, thank you. And so, part of my mission of this project is to get other animal activists to be more effective on social media, to take their game to the next level. And there is, of course, a whole variety of different things that they can do. And a few things that you should keep in mind is, where is your niche? What should you focus on? There's a lot of things out there. There's vegan humor via memes. There's vegan food, literally any food you can imagine. There's, excuse me, the benefits of doing this show live. And then, of course, there's animal activism. There's exposing the truth that farm animals are facing. There's the happy animal approach, where you're talking about animals living in sanctuaries and so on. What I'm talking about here, Lindsay, is that there are so many different approaches that you can take. So what I recommend for animal activists out there who want to take their social media game more seriously is to look at what kind of activism speaks to you and run with it. Find what your niche is. So, for example, if you have a passion for photography and you also have a passion for vegan food, if you're a big foodie, maybe you should make an Instagram doing food photography of vegan food. That would be a great use of your skills. It would be something that keep you passionate and that keep you going. But maybe your passion is just getting on the streets and speaking up for animals through all weather, through all conditions, just getting out there talking one-on-one to individuals. Maybe that's where you should focus all your energy. Maybe if you use social media, you can talk about the activism you did that day. You can talk about your interactions with people. Talk about what somebody told you. Talk about these experiences. Social media is essentially a way to take your interests and guide them to the work that you can do to really, really make a big difference for animals. And then, of course, if you're using social media, you want to think about what platforms you're using. Which ones give you the greatest bang for your buck? Which is going to make the biggest impact for animals? Now, I know a lot of social media users out there love Instagram, and Instagram has a lot to offer. But if your Instagram only has 30 followers and you're reaching no more than 30 different people every month, but on Facebook you could reach hundreds or thousands or millions, then maybe you should focus more energy on Facebook. So think about where you can make the biggest impact. So don't just necessarily use social media for the heck of it. Also use it to really make a difference.
Wow, those were all such good tips, and they make perfect sense. I really like the idea of saying, like, pick your niche. And another good thing that I think is interesting, those memes can break the solemnness. Like, say you're doing an activism approach, but if you use some vegan humor memes in between, it does break it up. And, you kind of have to stay, I think, tell me if I'm right. Once your audience trusts you, you don't want to let other people post without, monitoring them first, because if something suddenly changes to more harshness where you're kind of have a trusting audience, they're going to show things, they're going to inform me, but they're not going to overwhelm me with graphicness. So you want to address that a little bit about building your brand, kind of?
Right. So I think using humor is a really great tool. I think it's a really great way to get people to let their guard down a little bit. And, as animal advocates, as vegans especially, we are talking to people who already look at us as being different than them. They think, wow, they're crazy, or they think, wow, that's really cool what they're doing, but I could never do it. There are very few non-vegans out there who think they could easily go vegan and have no problem with it. Most of the time, they just think that they can't do it or that they would never want to do it. And that's where we come in. That's where we want to kind of break those walls down. And humor is a really great way of doing it. And now if you're talking about post content in general, Lindsay, it's important to think about the fact that you don't want to just focus on animal cruelty 24/7. You don't just want to talk about vegan food 24/7 necessarily. I think it's really important to have a well thought out balance of the content that you push out there. So for me, I've made an active choice not to include too much humor, maybe like 3 or 4 or 5% of my content is humor based, but the vast majority of it is either talking about how farm animals are really being treated on factory farms, or talking about how farm animals are also capable of feeling joy and experiencing happiness. So essentially sad animals and happy animals. And that's kind of the breakdown of my content. Probably 92% or almost all, basically split half and half between happy and sad, with just a little bit of humor thrown in there. And so for the people listening out here who want to use social media, you can also find some other balance of content. But the whole point I'm trying to make here, Lindsay, is that you really got to just be mindful of the content you're posting. Don't just post for the sake of posting. Don't just post whatever random thing comes to your mind. Try and be more strategic, because if you're more strategic, it's going to lead to you having more engagement, getting more followers, and reaching more people, and of course, making more of an impact for animals.
Now, as far as originality or original posts as opposed to reposting, now we know retweets are good, but is it more impactful to do your own, original, and particularly on Facebook? I know a lot of people share out, but as a general policy, when they share, should they also write something? And as
Yeah,
far
great question, Lindsay. So, in general, my preference is for individuals to share their own content natively rather than sharing from other pages, because your page will then get the added benefits of this content being shared. So, for example, if you post a video from undercover factory farm and people share it, let's say 20 people share that video, then those hundreds of people who see it will then, if they feel inspired to follow the page who posted it, they'll follow your page rather than someone else's. So it's a great way to build up your own brand.
Yeah.
So that's one thing to keep in mind. But also, if you are going to share someone else's content, let's say, for example, a local restaurant is offering a vegan hot dog now for the first time, and you want to talk about it, maybe share their post about it, but then don't just hit the share button and let the people in your news feed just see their thoughts on it. Write your own caption. Talk about how you feel about it, because the people who are seeing your content care about you. They don't care about these other strangers out there. So they care about what you have to say about it. So talk about how you're excited that this restaurant now offers a vegan hot dog. Talk about how this is going to make a big difference for animals because now vegan food is becoming more accessible. Use your own language.
I like that, John. I like that. That's really good advice. I keep having questions, but then as you're talking, I'm sort of forgetting them. Is there anything else you'd like to add about that in the social media realm? Oh, I thought of one. Some people may just be getting started with the idea of maybe they're not as familiar with computers, but they do have accounts and they want to get started with this digital activism. What would be your advice? I know you said if you like to post pictures, but is there any particular of the apps that you think are easier to get a foothold initially? If you're just starting with, maybe you have a page, but you don't have anything, you're not really posting about animal rights, you just became vegan and you're really inspired.
Yeah, there's no easy answer because now there's so many different social media platforms and they often appeal differently to different people, sometimes different demographics. And so what I recommend doing is just exploring all the different major platforms out there, particularly Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Rizzle, Reddit, these other Snapchat, all these platforms that are out there, LinkedIn, Tumblr, I could go on, Pinterest. Okay, stop. Explore different platforms.
This is great.
Yeah,
so it's great because it's so visual.
Right. So see which of these platforms you like the most, you feel comfortable the most, but also which of these platforms you think offers the greatest opportunity for you to make a difference. So TikTok, for example, it's growing, which is great for TikTok. And some users and social media activists out there might think, oh, this is a great opportunity. But you've got to ask, can your content succeed there? It's something I've struggled with because the kind of content that I like to share, I don't feel will do super well on TikTok. So is it worth the investment to spend a certain amount of resources? And that investment actually brings me to another point that I want to mention, Lindsay, and that's that we all have a set of limited resources on this planet. When we choose to do one thing, we're choosing not to do something else. And therefore, naturally, what we should try and do is do the things that are most effective. And yes, maybe building a TikTok from scratch is an effective use of your time, but maybe it isn't. For me, I don't think it would be. And so that was a tough decision I had to come to a number of months ago when TikTok really started growing. Maybe one day that'll change. Maybe Twitter or Instagram will go under, and then I'll have more of my resources I can allocate to a platform like TikTok. But the important thing I'm trying to get across here, Lindsay, for all of your viewers, is that as social media activists, just look at the work you're doing and the platforms you're using and ask yourself, is this the most effective use of my time? Because the animals out there, they don't have a lot of people or individuals working for them. They do have you and me and a handful of us. And so it's important that the handful of us are using our time as effectively as we can.
But it only takes 1% of us. What is that tipping point? No, 1.7% of the
Yeah, I
entire.
can't remember, but I do love the idea.
I don't know
Love
the numbers. Jay always says, don't quote numbers because you're not going to get it right, but everyone knows what I'm talking. It's a small percentage of the population to tip everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
But
I like that. On that note, Lindsay, I want to mention, I can't remember the numbers exactly, but it's something like, if every vegan out there right now inspired one person to go vegan once a year, and that everybody just did this, the whole population would be vegan in a pretty short amount of time. And so it's important for us to kind of have that mindset, because we can make a huge difference. I believe that, the activists out there who are getting dozens, hundreds, thousands, millions of views on important content on social media and beyond are making a difference. We are making more and more people choose veganism, and they, in turn, these new vegans are inspiring other people. And so it's this beautiful snowball effect. And so as activists, I know that we can get really down at times and feel hopeless and helpless, but we each can really make a big impact. And I believe that with this huge power of social media at our fingertips, a power like we've never had before, that day is going to come sooner rather than later.
Oh, I agree. Particularly the way things are changing, the new all the new plant-based IPOs. There's so many. McDonald's has McPlant Burger now. I mean, on and on and on and on. Just a couple more things, and we still have 20 minutes. YouTube. What about YouTube? And then the other question is, why is Twitter particularly good for you? I'm just curious. So those are my last two on the social media specific, but go ahead.
Sure. So YouTube is a really great platform. I think that one of the biggest benefits of YouTube is just like, it's like an encyclopedia. So whatever you're interested in, you can find videos about. It's pretty amazing, whether it's sports or veganism or absolutely anything. There is a plethora of information out there. And so for new vegans who want to get into activism, they can find some great videos on activism. And so there's just hours and hours. I mean, literally millions of hours of great content already out there. And if you as an activist want to use YouTube, I think you should definitely go for it, because it's a really great potential platform to reach a lot of people. Of course, something we need to keep in mind is that, it's really important for us to reach non-vegans more so than it's important to reach other vegans. Like, a vegan can't get any more vegan, right? Once you're vegan, you're essentially a net neutral in terms of the suffering that you're causing. So we want to reach those non-vegans. And so we can do what we can to try and reach those non-vegans. And so for me, I focus on platforms where I can reach a lot of non-vegans. And those are particularly Facebook and Twitter. Those are the two platforms where the majority of the content that I'm pushing out there, the majority of the views of this content, and it's hundreds of millions of views every year. That content is being seen mostly by non-vegans. And so the reason that Facebook and Twitter are so powerful is particularly the share button, the share function. So on Facebook, it's called share. Twitter, it's called retweet. Same function. Essentially, people in your newsfeed can see your content and choose to share that content with their own followers by hitting that share button, hitting that retweet button. And that is, I think that when animal liberation is finally achieved in several decades, we will look back at one of the unsung heroes, and one of those unsung heroes will be the share button on Facebook, because it has allowed us to exponentially reach more and more people than we'd ever reach in any other capacity.
And that's a great time to remind people to please share out this video. If you're enjoying this video, please share it out. There's a lot of great information. And of course, go to John's website, johnoberg.org, and his Patreon page. You want to give that one? You want to say that?
It's Patreon, which is patreon.com/John Oberg.
Fantastic. Straight on.
Shout out, Lindsay. Right, yeah. Right. Yep.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. So anything else? We're at about 45 minutes into the show. Anything else you want to tell us about that you're working on, or whatever you want to share would be great.
Yeah, I'll say that for the viewers out there who feel inspired to be, better advocates and want to do the most that they can for animals, or they just want to support my work, I would really love to have them become patrons of mine. And the nice thing about it is that it's transactional. So if you like the content that I'm putting out there and you want to support me, you can become a patron, but then you can also get benefits as a result. One of the things I do is every month I send out 3 comprehensive tips to take your social media game to the next level. And I offer this to all my patrons, and along with a slew of other benefits. So these are kind of added bonuses that you get by supporting my work. So I would love to have your support and have you team up with me in this way so that we can work to create a kinder world for animals.
John, I learned that trees under the ground, their roots are all connected and they actually share information. So trees in one area where there might be a fire, they actually notify trees in other areas and let them know about it. And it's kind of the same thing. What I was picturing was your social media hub and then all your Patreon viewers reaching out there and them spreading the word. And maybe eventually they become Patreon, as it grows and grows and grows. And we become this matrix of you know what I mean? It would be
I totally agree with you. And I agree with this concept because, when I'm looking at the tens of millions of views that I'm getting on posts in a given year, that is driven largely by the followers I have on these platforms. And so if it wasn't for the followers sharing this content, people wouldn't be seeing it. And so it's that kind of community that is really driving this activism, this advocacy. And then without patrons who support my work, I wouldn't be able to post this content and push this message out there. And so my followers and my patrons, and there's a lot of overlap there, they work together in this beautiful way and I'm just one part of that cog in the machine that makes this advocacy for animals possible and gets our ability to take the animals' issues and put it on the forefront of the conversation possible.
That is so phenomenal. And that's really what we need now. We need it right now.
Definitely.
Yes, John, it's been such a pleasure having you on today. And I've learned so much. And I hope everybody that was watching enjoyed it and will share. Of course, they enjoyed it. I hope they will share it out to inform other people how they can use digital media for activism, digital activism as it's now called. I know the Humane League, maybe you set that up. I bet you did. Did you set that up for the Humane League where they have those digital activism things? I don't want to put you on the spot, but
no, I did not. But I love the work that they're doing there. That's really great work. And I think that speaks to the movement, the direction that we're all going in this movement and beyond, that, digital activism, even if it isn't everything you're focusing on, it is a huge supplement to the work that you're already doing on the ground or elsewhere. Social media and digital activism is the future and is absolutely going to create a world of difference for animals.
Indeed. Thank you so much for being on, John. Thanks everyone for watching. Please share this out. Please visit John's sites. They are in the comments and you can find them there. And we will see you next time. Bye for now. Bye-bye. Thank you, John.